And we're live. Good morning, Eric.
Good morning, Tellman.
It is January 29th, episode 29 of the Get Shit Done show. I feel like a train wreck this morning. I had a cold for like a week. I thought I was over it, and then I think it turned into like a minor sinus infection or something, or at least it feels that way. And so
Okay.
I was just very, very worn down and tired this morning. So we might
Right.
end up having a short episode today, ladies and gentlemen, but we're here to talk about stories. Eric had a long day of training yesterday and did his
Super
first
long.
webinar, so we want to check in about all of that and talk about some of the cool things you learned. We're going to talk a little bit about stories in marketing, stories in hypnosis, and everything in between. So, Eric, what's your positive focus?
My positive focus, I had a really full day yesterday. So, it started off with the Get Shit Done show. That was like an hour long live stream. Granted, part of it was a hypnosis session, which was awesome. And then I went right into this very extensive training with Russell Brunson about selling online specifically. And yeah, oh my God, it was just information dense and fast paced and so much. And it went much longer than it was scheduled to end at 6 p.m. It went from 10 in the morning till 6 p.m. with a 1 hour break. So it was a lot. But then it actually went till like 7 or 8 p.m. And I had my webinar scheduled for 6 p.m. Central time. And yeah, I felt a little bit torn what to do because I was getting so much value
I
from
know you texted me.
right. But I decided to stick with my commitment to delivering my webinar. And a lot of my resistance to doing that was fear-based. And
I could
was
tell.
like,
I could totally feel it. Your text was minimal, but I could tell that
I was so tired and just just really full from the really long training. I was just kind of wrapped in a blanket and I was just like, oh, I don't want to do it. Like, I'll do it better next week. But I was like, no. And with 2 minutes of preparation, I showed up and delivered the webinar, and
great.
I did a good job,
That's awesome.
Cool.
Yeah. No, dude, I could totally because if you had zero resistance about setting up the webinar and doing the webinar in the first place and blah, blah, blah. And if you had done a registration page and nobody had registered or something, that would have been a little different. But following through on those things, even if you think no one is watching, is such an important thing.
It is.
Both internally and externally. As an entrepreneur, you have to know that you're going to follow through on your stuff and that you have the ability and the willingness and the fortitude to do that no matter what the obstacle is. And that skill, developing that, strengthening that, is what's going to make the difference long term. And so that's why I was like, dude, you should totally still do your webinar. But your excuse is reasonable. I'm in the middle of this training. It's going long. It's awesome. I'm getting a lot out of it. Right. But yeah, I could tell you were like, maybe I don't need to do it this week.
I know, right? Yeah. Plus, I was operating on 3 hours of sleep on top of everything
in a while.
A lot of stress.
Right.
So
Right. No, I hear that.
But,
Well, way to go. Way to get the
you.
first one knocked out. That's really awesome. Really awesome. How many slides is your slide deck?
I think it's about 30 slides, something like that. I have to double check.
I forwarded. So there's this guy in the marketing circles named Jason Fladlian, and he's very smart, and I feel like he spent more than 10 years focused on being the webinar guy, right? Cool. And he is the guy that everybody that's his thing. That's specializing in helping people rate webinars that crush. And I forwarded you a short video and post by him on Facebook.
I saw that. Yeah.
That I saw this morning. And it was a cool post because I haven't gone through any of Jason's training. I really should. like I haven't gone through a new webinar training in a long time, truth be told. And Jason's the man for this. Like, he's the sought after guy. And he said, create your slideshow, create your PowerPoint, put everything into it, put every bullet, every point, every concept, like really do the whole thing. And then basically triple your number of slides. He's like, make sure you have one slide or 1 point per slide, and then stretch it out to 1 point per 3 slides if possible.
Okay, interesting.
Have slides with only an image on it. Have slides with only 1 or 2 words on it. Only 1 bullet point on it. It was basically made the point that people really need movement. The brain really needs to stay attentive, and
that makes sense. Yeah,
he didn't say it quite in this way, but like in the short attention span theater that we live in now, where all of our media is super short, where our brains are trained to flip from thing to thing to thing faster than ever. And if your webinar isn't keeping people engaged, they're going to flip out of your webinar and they're going to start scrolling through Facebook or TikTok or whatever while they're supposed to be paying attention to your webinar. Right. So like, really, he's like, 50-minute presentation, I think he said, should have 500 slides or some crap like that.
Wow. Okay.
Which is like, I've never done a webinar like that. And I hadn't even thought about doing a webinar like that. And so it was one of, you can try all these things and some of them will work for you and some of them won't, but really interesting way of spicing it up and changing your webinar by having a lot more slides.
Yeah, right? I like that.
Keep it moving.
Okay.
But what would you say? So Russell Brunson is a longtime friend, right? I've used ClickFunnels for years.
Yeah.
And Russell and I used to promote each other's stuff back in the day. We were both students of Mark Joyner about the same time. I think he started studying Mark a little bit before me. Okay. And Mark, of course, sold the first ebook online, founder of Simpleology. He essentially invented ad tracking before anyone else started doing anything with ad tracking. So Mark was an early pioneer. And Russell obviously has had enormous success with ClickFunnels and had a bunch of successes prior to ClickFunnels, but ClickFunnels is his mammoth, right? It's mega success. And I'm curious, like, what would you say are the top 3 biggest takeaways or the top 3 most important points that you took from the training yesterday?
Right. Okay. Yeah. Immediately what comes to mind is like the different parts of the brain that different kinds of information speaks to.
Right.
Specifically, what stood out to me is what he shared about how facts, like when you state facts, it speaks to the conscious brain, like your logic brain. And it's not a really compelling, like it's not a part of the brain that's really compelled to buy. Like you don't buy things logically. You buy from, he was saying more like if you can speak to the subconscious mind through stories, that's how the subconscious mind receives information, through stories. Right. And that can trigger things within your subconscious mind that then compel you to buy, in a way that you wouldn't be able to do through just stating facts. And yeah, it had me reflecting on the webinar that I was about to deliver later that day, yesterday. And I was like, man, my entire webinar is just fact-based, bullet points, this fact, that fact, statistics. And it got me thinking how I can craft a much better webinar telling stories that are relevant. And yeah, so I feel excited about that moving forward. And yeah, some other key takeaways. Yeah, the difference between a product and an offer, whereas like a product is just, a single item for sale. An offer is more, it's like a stack of different things bundled together to add tremendous value. And it's based in the results you can get for your client and not just making the sale, which I thought
Right.
was really cool. Like what
So
results?
what do you mean by that? I mean, I think I know what you mean, but for everybody watching, like what do you mean by the offer stack is focused on getting the result for the client?
Okay, so like in the context of my network marketing business, I'm not just selling them the water ionizer that gets them their distributor license where they can start selling them. I'm also selling them mentorship where they can, they'll learn and develop all the skill sets and mindsets they need to succeed and get the results that they want with that.
Cool.
Yeah.
Dude, I just had the funniest idea is maybe you could reach out to Kagan,
Yep.
maybe through your upline, and ask if you can get your hands on a returned water ionizer that is broken.
Okay.
And then take it apart on video.
Interesting.
And find out, like get the schematics and like take it up, like do an unboxing, except you're like literally do a dismantling, right? Like, here's what you're gonna get. I've never taken one of these apart before, but we're gonna look at the schematics and we're gonna take a look at what's inside that makes this thing tick. Like it's a different way of both illuminating facts and kind of in a way telling a story about what the thing is and what it's all made of. But it would be it's a tangent, but
that's interesting.
It'd be a very interesting way of showing people what they get. They don't just get the ionizer, they don't just get the opportunity, they don't just get the comp plan. Right. They also get like this, 652 part machine.
Right.
Whatever,
Yeah.
Anyway, it could be a fun project.
No, that would be. But yeah, another key takeaway is, you're not selling a product, you're selling a dream or a belief. So yeah, it just made me think of a quote that they also shared from Alex Hermosi. You don't buy the plane ticket, you buy the beach.
The destination.
Yeah, the destination, right, exactly.
Cool.
So yeah, there was a lot more, but gosh, I'm going to have to review my notes, and I also have to watch like the last 2 hours of the training that I missed while I was delivering my webinar and just kind of decompressing.
And you have two more days just like that. So
2 more days just like that. Yeah, so it's it's full on. Yep.
Yeah, that's cool. Yeah, there's this whole what's been really cool is getting, doing all these private sessions that I've been doing lately.
Yeah.
Pretty much everybody's like, I love being on your email list. I really appreciate your creativity. Your emails are like magical fairy tales that transport me into a different world. And people really, really, really appreciate them. They really appreciate and like all of my mascot emails are pure fictional storytelling, right?
Okay.
That hopefully set people up for the purchase on the next page. But one thing I haven't done too much with is actual mascots fiction-based videos, right? Where I write an email that gets people captivated and opens it and clicks through, but then it's often a very factual sales video, a very factual sales page. And so continuing that story on and continuing that thread on in the same tone, I expect would be a very powerful way to do it, but it's just not something I've done yet. In hypnosis, one of the probably the greatest hypnotists to ever live is Milton Erickson, and Milton Erickson created Ericksonian hypnosis. He was a PhD and an academic, among other things. But when he was young, I believe he had polio, and he was bedridden for many years, where he was like mostly paralyzed and had very little use of his body for a bunch of years as a child. And he would just lay there in bed and observe everyone. He'd watch them, he'd listen to them, he'd see how they interact with each other. And his keen sense of he had a particularly keen sense of observation. And he really started understanding how people worked at a deep level by basically having to lay there and just the only thing he could do is pay attention to what everybody else was doing. And
Okay.
he created Ericksonian hypnosis. And one of the things that would often happen with Milton Erickson is people would go in to get hypnotized by him, but he'd end up just telling them a story. And that was not what they were expecting, but they'd walk out and they'd never smoke again.
Wow. Interesting.
So Ericksonian hypnosis, there's the Ericksonian Institute. Prior to the flood at my house, I had this amazing 22 volume set of all of Milton Erickson's. It was a limited edition hardcover. It was beautiful.
Wow.
Gone now, unfortunately.
You had a flood.
Yeah. My pipes ended up bursting in my house when we were away in the winter, and it was just like a big mess. Wow. So I lost most of my library. At any rate, Ericksonian hypnosis, it's an incredible way to not just sell someone something. Storytelling is an incredible way of making an impression on someone in a way that it's multisensory. Like a good story activates all the senses. It activates sight, sound, perhaps taste and smell, certainly feeling, both physical and emotional. And if you can tell us, the trick is to tell a story, or perhaps even your story. It doesn't need to be your story, but like if you're selling, there's a line when you're telling stories. It depends on how you're going to do it, but you never want to tell a fake story. You don't want to create like a fake testimonial or make people believe something happened that didn't happen. But at the same time, you can use fictional stories to make points in sales materials. It's a fine line when you're telling stories between, is it a story or is it truth? Right? Good question. And so when you tell a really good story, ideally, the person you're telling the story to can completely imagine themselves in your situation. And so your story might have aspects of it that are very different than what your prospect might be going through. But you can lean on the parts of the story that are very relatable and are probably similar. So even though you were a hippie in Hawaii living off grid in a house that you built yourself, harvesting, mangoes and bananas that were growing in the jungle or whatever. And that might not be where they're at. A place where they probably are at is, I remember when I first learned about Kagan, and I was at a financially challenging point in my life where no matter what I did, I couldn't seem to generate the income that I needed to both pay the bills and consistently save money. Everything I tried just wouldn't work. And I'm kind of a, hippie, back to the earth, yoga, crunchy, kind of guy. And you may or may not have that kind of personality, but whatever you're into, is if you've ever experienced working like crazy for weeks, months, years on end, but you just can't seem to manage to do anything better than scrape by, then you can probably relate. Anyway, I was out living in this house that I had built, and looking desperately for a way of making better and consistent money. And I tried working odd jobs. I tried construction. I tried, renting places, renting out rooms in my house. I tried all these things, and it just wasn't working. And I wasn't sure if it was me that wasn't working, if I was dropping the ball, or if it, I felt rather directionless. I was very unclear. And then I decided to host a party at my house. I invited over a bunch of friends, and one of my friends, Bob invited one of his friends that I had never met before. And this guy wasn't he was a little bit different. There was something different about him. He had a little glint in his eye, and he seemed unusually energetic and happy. And I was introduced to him. He shook my hand with a firm handshake, gave me a hug, and then they offered me a glass of water. And that was the first glass of Kagan water that I ever tried, and I had the best night of my life. And no, there wasn't anything laced in the water. It was so I'm just making a story, but that's an example of how I got introduced to Kagan.
Okay, sure.
And how it changed my life, kind of a story. And like, that could easily last half an hour, just that one story.
Right.
Bringing people through the process of getting to a low point, wanting to make a change, being introduced to a magical mentor who,
right.
So,
yeah. And I mean, I could tell like my actual story of how that happened.
Right. Yeah. I don't know what that story is.
Right.
Like, I mean, you may have told me, but I don't remember what it is.
Yeah. Maybe not.
Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, I was just making stuff up there, obviously, but there's this classic Wall Street Journal ad. Is one of the best ads of all time. Look it up. Look up the Wall Street Journal.
Okay.
Like the classic direct response Wall Street Journal sales letter. And it tells a story of two guys that went, that came from similar families, similar income levels. They went to, they had the similar upbringing. They went to the same college even, and they both graduated with degrees in business, whatever. And one went on to be a bajillionaire, and one went on to, be a garbage man or whatever. And what was the difference? What was the difference between these two people? One went on to be super successful. They had the same IQ, they had the same this, the same that. One of them read the Wall Street Journal.
Oh, okay.
That's an example of a story that is probably completely fabricated, but it's not a testimonial. So it's like there are aspects of storytelling that you can use in sales that are great, especially if there's a little fiction or fantasy to them, that it's clearly not a actual where you're not misrepresenting someone or something.
Right.
Like that. But yeah, storytelling,
that makes sense.
The thing about storytelling is when we're watching a movie or reading a book, or listening to an audiobook, and the story is unfolding, we buy into it. Like there's a certain level of suspension of paying attention, suspension of disbelief about whether the story's real or not, or what's going on in our physical world. As we get enveloped into a story, the story becomes temporarily more real in our minds than everything else around us. And if you're fully captivated in the story, you might be asking yourself what's going to happen next, or what. But if you're asking yourself what's happened next, then you already believe what has happened previously, even if it's a story. And if you believe what's happened previously, now it feels like it's true, like it's this is a real thing, and I'm experiencing it. I'm feeling it right now. This is real for me. And so when you buy into a story, one of the reasons that people love the hero's journey and love going through that process is because they feel like they're part of it if it's told properly.
Yep.
It feels like it's about them instead of about you, right? You're telling a story that they very well could be the main character in, right?
Right. So like an example of that, we went, my partner and I, we went to see Moana 2 the other night. And
how was that, by the way? I saw the first one. I love cartoons, by the way. I generally prefer cartoons over almost any other entertainment, but I was not a huge fan of the first Moana. How was the second?
Well, regardless, something I mean, this is obviously a work of fiction, right?
Yeah.
But it tells a story. And something that I noticed was throughout the whole movie, it wasn't just one hero's journey, but it was lots of mini heroes' journeys all throughout.
Cool.
And reflecting on the movie afterwards, my partner said to me that she felt like she just really connected with the main character, like,
cool.
And felt like Like it just like really spoke to her, and she had that experience through the movie. So it was like, yeah, just kind of ties into what you're talking about,
Dude,
how
I often
a
find myself
compelling
like choking up or crying in these cartoons or whatever,
yeah.
because I feel like the character, like I feel like
Mhm.
I've gone through it. Or I didn't used to do that when I was younger, but as I've gotten older, I've gotten more maybe emotionally open or something, and so I can,
Okay.
like, yeah, it's really amazing.
Yep.
It's really amazing. And so stories bring out those feelings, and most people that study selling will say, you touched on this earlier, will say that, we buy based on emotion and then we justify it after the fact with logic, right?
Right.
Some of the more hardcore logic people will say, no, that's bullshit. But purchasing something, or quote unquote buying into an ideal, a philosophy, a concept, it really is usually, it leads with emotion. Is if you have that emotional conviction that this is for you, that this will help you, this will help you get out of the crappy situation you're into, and move toward a bigger, better, brighter dream for the future. Like, that's really the magic. It really is.
Absolutely. Yeah. No, it's fascinating to me when I get presented with an offer where there's like this spark that all of a sudden ignites in me. I'm like, how can I make this happen? And I kind of dissect what they did and try and figure out what's going on there because it's such a compelling offer. And yeah, there's something to that. I notice around Black Friday, the offers just get especially potent. Like the marketing around Black Friday is really
Most
well
people put
crafted. A
most
lot of it.
like most people put more effort into their Black Friday offer than
Yep.
they do all year long. So there's
Yeah.
that, right?
Yeah. Sure.
There's just like built-in urgency and scarcity, because it's a temporary window when it's going to be available.
That too.
That
Right.
that really, that's a huge hot button with people, right? Obviously.
Yep.
Um, that's
But that
interesting.
like, but that buy instinct. It's like something. It's not up here. It's like in there somewhere, and it's like
And
this
well,
spark
so
that ignites, and it's like, and then it's like, yeah, you're looking in your brain to justify it.
right, right,
Yeah.
right. How can I make this a rational decision that, like, no one
Exactly.
will
It
look down
doesn't
on
make
me for,
sense.
or how can I do this and feel good about it afterward?
Yeah.
It is really interesting. One of the best methodologies to really learn how to become a great copywriter is to sit your ass down and copy dozens and dozens and dozens of the world's best sales letters by hand, to write them out by hand. And one of the reasons that you got to write them out by hand is you really have to embody and experience the full story, and the offer, and like the whole sales process, word by word, sentence by sentence, paragraph by paragraph. And if you just I learned how to type fast in high school. I took a typing class, I think my sophomore year in high school, maybe even my
Okay.
freshman year. And like, thank God I did, because I'm not like the fastest typist in the world, but I've been able to type fast my whole life pretty much,
Cool.
because of that Miss Rancor and her putting that cardboard box over the keyboard, or over our hands so we couldn't see. So
Oh.
um it was great. But um writing out sales letters by hand, it slows you way down,
Mm-hmm.
right? When you're writing, and most people suck at writing things by hand these days because we're all on our computers all the time and texting. Like, very, very few people actually write much by hand at this point. At least internet
Yeah.
marketers, in my experience. And
I'm
so,
kind of old school. I have all these notebooks just filled with sloppy writing.
awesome. So next time you find a sales letter that
Yeah.
hits you like that, save the URL and then write it out by hand on paper.
Okay. Yeah, I'll
And
try that.
I think, and it takes forever, but
Yep.
totally worth it. Totally worth it.
Right.
Awesome. Well, how are you going to improve your webinar or sales presentation? Let's just say webinar, with what you've learned yesterday. Like, what are a couple things that you're going to try to integrate in to make your presentation even better for the future?
So my existing presentation's all about the product and the opportunity, different facts listed out, bullet points, and the comp plan training and everything. And that's great, but it doesn't really focus on my clients much at all. And that's something that I really want to incorporate moving forward is how does the product and opportunity translate into the big result that I'm helping my clients get in their life? How's that actually going to impact their life? And how can I incorporate storytelling into that? Telling stories, other people's stories too, like people that are getting tremendous results in my upline and
Yeah, well, dude, that's what I was just going to say is that's a
yeah,
really easy way. So even if you have a basic structure for your webinar, including the call to action at the end and the whole thing, very easy to write down a series of questions that cause people to tell their story, and maybe 10 questions that are inquiries about their story. How did they become an entrepreneur? How did they get involved with Kagan? Like, what's the deal? What's been one of the most significant or pivotal changes that have happened as a result of while you were, since you became a Kagan distributor, right? Who's been your biggest success story? Who's been
right.
your biggest inspiration and why, right?
Mm-hmm.
And just a series of questions like this with a solid pitch at the end, going directly to your upline, gives you endless awesome content, right?
Yep.
Obviously, you could do a webinar and then you can slice and dice it up afterward and turn it into videos and shorts and all sorts of other stuff.
Yep.
Gives them a great webinar that they could use,
Mm-hmm.
And if they're telling their story and you're helping to draw that out of them in a unique and interesting way, then and they're in your upline anyway, they're going to make money every time you recruit people into your organization and your team anyway. So it just seems like an awesome opportunity to break free from just the standardized Kagan process and really get personal with people.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, and take them on that hero's journey from struggle to triumph, and build self-belief along that way that they can make it happen for themselves.
Right.
Yep.
Yeah, I would encourage you to do that. That's awesome. And
Mm-hmm.
again, that gives you limitless new webinars to do.
Oh my God, I know. Yeah, I could change it up every time. Sorry, what?
They couldn't even follow the same basic structure, interviewing
Mm-hmm.
someone on a higher level and then ultimately pitching a call at the end to book with you. So that's awesome.
Exactly. Yep.
Cool. Well, we were talking about maybe doing a slightly shorter episode here today. Do you have any so we'll do a Pure Path pitch commercial here in a second, but before we do, Robert, it is a big topic. Thanks for tuning in. Good to see you this morning. How's it going? We'd love to know from you guys, Robert, and anyone else who's watching, is do you all do webinars? Do you do webinars? And how, if at all, do you use storytelling in your sales and marketing? Very interested in hearing what you have to say about that. Eric, what is are you going to start doing a weekly webinar?
That's the plan. Yeah.
Great. Do you have a set time or day?
I'm probably going to stick with Tuesdays at 7 p.m. Eastern time.
Cool. Yeah. I mean, give it a
seems
shot.
To work for now.
Move it around, if you want to. I don't know if this is still true. I need to do some testing. But in the past, I have found that business opportunity related webinars Wednesday and Thursday evening are pretty good.
Okay.
In the past, if you're looking for people who are gainfully employed, right? 7 might work. You might, I'm saying Eastern time, but you also might even find that 8 o'clock, maybe even 9 o'clock would work. But certainly um, just keep doing them. Keep doing them. And I
Yep.
highly encourage you to have an opt-in page and build your email list every single time you do a webinar. Okay. Super important.
Like build a new one each time.
Every time.
Okay.
Every time.
Yep.
You want to train people to register and opt in for the stuff that you're giving away, especially if it's a what is Robert saying? I don't know what you're saying exactly, Robert. I'm missing a reference. Todorov? Face orange TV shape. Yeah, I'm not catching you, Robert. I don't know who Todorov is. Do you mean Totoro? Totoro? Is that what you're saying? Or something
no
else?
idea.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Anyway, yeah, please clarify for us. Cool. So, and again, stories are also great in short form, right? Whether it's an email or a post or a short form video or a live stream or whatever. Stories are really, really, really powerful. And there are so many different ways that you can study storytelling. The more you study storytelling while you're studying sales and marketing, the better. You'll get really, really, really good results if you become a good storyteller and a good direct response marketer.
Right.
Do you have any questions? I mean, obviously there's 2 more days of training with Russell's thing, but was there anything you learned yesterday that you feel you have questions or you need clarity about in terms of how to integrate it into your own sales process?
Right now, I feel like there's so much compressed. I need to have some decompression time where I can just kind of like take everything that I learned and spread it out and contemplate it more. And then I'm sure I'll have a ton of questions.
Yeah, I encourage you to remember to stay on schedule with your regular webinars and improve it a little bit each time, but don't get caught up in trying to add everything in to your next webinar because you
all
can't.
At once. Sure.
It's all about the journey. It's all about
for sure. Yep.
That's really important. And Eric, I've mentioned this to you a whole bunch of times before, but I almost every single client that I've spoken to in the last month or two who wants to make more money has almost every single one is making exactly the same, at least one of the same mistakes.
All right.
The mistake is very simple. If you are working a full-time job, or even if you're not, and you're asking yourself, what kind of money do I want to make with my business? What kind of business do I have? Where do I want to be a year from now? What am I trying to accomplish here? People will say something like, oh, I want to make $10,000 a month, and then have absolutely no idea what business model they're going to do it with. I want to generate passive income so I can retire. People will say, people will say, through this method or that method or this, and then I'll ask them, well, how much time do you have scheduled in to build your business on your calendar every week or every day? And they'll often say none. And so in my experience, if you're going to try to build a business, I want you to there are businesses that you can build faster and easier than others, certainly with less money, less time. But generally speaking, if you're going to build a business, I'd like you to imagine what it actually takes to do something like open up a convenience store or a gas station. What does it actually take to open up a storage unit facility? Or what does it actually take to buy a rental property and to rent out apartments, and then to fill those apartments, and then to maintain the apartments and keep the tenants happy and all this kind of stuff? Like, think about how much money, time, effort, and energy, how much hustle it takes to open a dump truck business, like whatever business, a restaurant, name it. restaurants are great because they don't pay that well, generally speaking. There's not huge profit margins, but they take a ton of work. And so
Mm-hmm.
you ask someone, so the business that you work for right now, where you get paid your full-time salary, how many people work there? And they'll say 30 people, 100 people, 1,000 people, you know, and
Yeah.
you say, well, think about that business and that machine and how long it took to build that, right? How many people that it took to create that business and how many hours they had to put in over how many years in order to get that thing cooking. Okay.
Yep.
To get you to the point where you could make a full-time salary in order to pay your bills to sustainably. So they end up realizing, oh, it took years worth of manpower in order to get
Mm-hmm.
this business up and running, of human
Right.
power to get the business up and running and then to maintain it, right?
Yeah.
Years, you know, thousands of hours, thousands.
Mm-hmm.
And then you ask them, so how do you expect to have a business that's going to make you $10,000 a month in passive income when you're not putting in an hour a day?
Right.
What are you doing?
Yeah.
And so generally speaking, this is such a simple hack, but
Mm-hmm.
it takes effort every day, which is an hour a day of education, hour a day of execution.
Right.
Spend at least an hour a day learning something new to grow your business, and an hour a day immediately executing on what you just learned, right? Immediately execute. And that's how you start your day. And then you spend the rest of your day working on your business, right? Like
Yeah, I
all the
like
stuff
that.
that you kind of can see that you need to do or that you know how to do and so on. And if you're working full time, then you do this in the morning before you go to work. You do this at night after you get back, and then you spend your weekends on it. Like that, you know, that's how you start a new business. And so just setting that time aside to hone and refine your skills, to get educated and to focus on immediate execution and implementation is a habit that successful entrepreneurs have that people who are perpetually stuck simply don't have. They haven't chosen to take their business seriously enough to consistently schedule the time in to grow it. And so I know we were talking about stories, and this is kind of a tangent from stories, but I found that it's the most important thing in terms of, are you or aren't you putting in the time to hone and refine your skills to grow your business and then to implement those skills right away, right?
Right.
And if the
Yep.
answer is no, then that's probably what's keeping you stuck.
Yeah.
Right? So way to go on doing your first webinar, dude. Way
Thank
to
you.
go on while you decided, you know, like you pushed through the resistance, you scheduled in the webinar, you got the webinar slides done, you did the webinar, and you signed up for a training to get better at webinars.
Right.
Awesome. That's how it's done. Like,
that's how it's done. Yeah.
Like for you and anybody who's wondering, that's the deal. This is how we do it, right? So rock and roll. Well, guys, let us know in the comments. Are you a fan of webinars? Do you do webinars? Are you using stories or storytelling in your business and in your presentations? Please let us know what you think of today's episode, and if you have any questions. If you're an entrepreneur and you want to get more shit done, you want to stop playing tiddlywinks, you want to stop, you know, sitting around feeling stuck all the time, and you really want to start getting some momentum and making some progress, join us at getshitdone.com. We have a community of growth-minded entrepreneurs who are focused on training to get better at getting shit done. And we would love to see you in the community if that seems like the kind of place that you would thrive. So with that said, Eric, you want to do a quick commercial for Pure Path, and then we can wrap it for the day.
Yeah, sounds good. So inside my Facebook group, Pure Path to Prosperity, I am going to be posting the replay of the webinar that I delivered last night. If you're interested to learn about the high ticket network marketing company that I'm working with and the opportunity with that and how it can help you get from where you're at in your life, if you're, you know, working some job that's keeping you stuck, working long hours, and you're looking to create more freedom and more flexibility in your schedule and your time, so you have more time with your family, doing the things you love, maybe go off traveling, whatever it is that you want to create in your life that you don't have the time for, this is for you. And yeah, it's a great opportunity to, work at home and be in charge of your life.
Rock and roll. Awesome.
So the link is in the description at the bottom in the PS. And I'll see you in the Pure Path to Prosperity.
That's awesome, Eric.
Yeah, thank you.
So little webinar tip before we wrap, which is so definitely post it in the group. You have a Go High Level account, right?
I do, yeah.
I would encourage you to take that recording and to create a funnel in Go High Level.
Okay.
And to take the recording of your webinar and slap it up there on a page, white page, short headline above the webinar, have the webinar, and then have a timed button that appears at the appropriate point in the webinar where they can click it and open up a window to book a call with you. And then just send people directly to that page.
Okay. Yeah, I like that idea.
Putting the recording of the webinar in the Facebook group isn't a bad idea, but it's probably not going to get you a lot because Facebook is Distractatron 2000. Like,
true. Yep.
There's a million things to do on Facebook. If you're on Facebook, you're in time wasting mode as a general rule, right?
Sure.
You're in between things. You're often, when people are on Facebook, they're avoiding doing the hard work that they should be doing, right? I like myself included. And so consider building a direct response funnel. You may even want to, do the video with the button and then bring it into a next page where they can book their call. So you can see how many people click the button and move on to the next page, and start getting some metrics. But I basically treat it a little bit like a super simple video sales letter funnel: white background, headline, video, timed button. That's all. That's all. That's all that's on the page.
Yep.
And then at the appropriate time they can click and then book a call. That way you can send people there. You can do posts where people say they're interested, and then you can reply to them and send people a direct link. And the other thing that you can do is you can have people opt in for the webinar that you've already done, build your email list, and then drop them off on the thank you page to watch the webinar. And then you've created a prospect, you've created a lead. So I would definitely recommend that you train your people to opt in to all your webinars, and it will build your email list. And there's all sorts of things that we can do to optimize your sales process if you start doing this. Right? Because the most important page for your webinar or whatever it is you're giving away, you might say it's your landing page, and that is critically important, but I guess not the most important, but the most profitable page is your thank you page.
Yeah, I was thinking that.
If you don't have a registration page, then you don't have a thank you page.
True.
No, and 100% of the people that opt in are going to see your thank you page.
Yep.
Probably between 20 and 45%, if you're lucky, of the people that register for a webinar will show up to the webinar, but they'll all see that thank you page. And I want to point out that there's some interesting things you can do in network marketing. Is that if you know that people are opting in, and if they know they're opting in for something network marketing related, if they're opting in for a webinar, then you can sell them something on the thank you page that's related, but is not the opportunity. So you can have people opt in for a webinar, and then you could have like a long copy video of you, like doing a version of the pitch, and have them book a call right there on the thank you page.
Right. Okay. Sure.
But you could also have them opt into a live webinar about Kagan, and you could end up promoting as an affiliate attraction marketing stuff on the thank you page.
Exactly.
Right. And so you could make some low ticket revenue while they're waiting for your live webinar. And so this is another reason to get in the habit of creating opt-in pages every time you do a webinar.
Yeah. I like that.
Yeah.
I'll try that out.
Sweet. Cool. All right. Liz says, walk the path.
Walk the path. Hey,
walk
Liz.
The path. Morning, Liz. Rock and roll. All right. Well, Eric, thank you. Episode 29. We're almost done with our first month.
Right. Yeah. Thank you.
Serious.
Yep.
Rock and roll. All right, guys. Well, we've had a ton of people actually on today, a lot more than normal on watching us live. So it's good to see you all. Thank you, Robert. Thank you, Liz, for jumping in and commenting. It's great to see you. And if you didn't check out yesterday's episode, we did a live hypnosis session that was really good yesterday.
That was really good.
That you should check out during episode 28 on YouTube, Facebook, LinkedIn, and everywhere else. And we also have some excitement. We have another member of our Get Shit Done community who's going to jump on as a co-host next Wednesday. So we're gonna be changing it up and getting some more people involved. So very, very excited to see how that goes.
Totally. Yeah, me too.
All right, guys, rock and roll. That's all for now. Eric, thank you, and thank you all of our Get Shit Done fanatics. Great seeing you. We'll see
thanks
you
for tuning in
at 9 a.m.
Sounds good.
Thanks, man. Thanks, guys.
Yeah, thank you.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye.